I asked the plumber to check my daughter's basement while she was on vacation in the Bahamas. 40 minutes later, he called me, his voice cracking. "Sir, I think you need to come over right now. There's something behind the storage wall, and I can hear breathing." I drove there faster than I should have, and what I uncovered behind that wall changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. Before I go any further, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments what time it is, where you live right now. I want to know who's listening tonight. My name is Walter Brennan. I'm 67 years old, and I live in a small 2-bedroom condo in Asheville, North Carolina. For 41 years, I worked as a homicide detective with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department before I finally turned in my badge 3 years ago. 41 years of stepping into houses where the wallpaper looked normal, but the walls held secrets. 41 years of learning that the most dangerous people in the world don't look dangerous at all. They look like neighbors. They look like coworkers. Sometimes, God help me, they look like family. My daughter is Caroline. She's 38 now, a dental hygienist married to a man named Trevor Holcomb. Trevor's 42, runs his own boutique real estate firm, the kind that flips houses in the trendy parts of town and posts drone footage of them on social media. They met at some charity gala about 6 years ago and were married within 10 months. I never liked Trevor much. Something about the way he laughed too loud at his own jokes, the way his eyes never quite settled on you when he spoke. But Caroline was happy, or said she was, and I'd learned a long time ago that telling your grown daughter who to love is a fast way to lose her. About 5 years back, I did something that, looking back, was probably foolish. I had a nice ranch house up on Sunset Ridge Road, the same house where Caroline grew up after her mother Diane passed from a stroke when Caroline was 19. The house was paid off, full of memories, and far too much space for one widower. So when Caroline mentioned she and Trevor wanted to start a family but couldn't afford anything bigger than their downtown loft, I made them an offer. They could live in the Sunset Ridge house, rent-free, as long as they took care of it. I kept the deed in my name, old detective habit. You always want a fallback plan when you don't fully trust the room you're standing in. Trevor had pumped my hand and called me the best father-in-law a man could ask for. Caroline had cried and hugged me. They moved in within a month. For the first year, things were fine. Sunday dinners, birthday parties. Caroline would call me on Wednesday evenings, just to talk about her week. Then it slowed down, then it stopped almost entirely. The Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly, then nothing. Caroline would text instead of call. Trevor stopped answering when I rang. I'd drive past the house sometimes, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, and just look at the lights in the windows from across the street, like some kind of ghost. 2 years ago, my wife Diane's sister, Margaret, passed away. Caroline didn't come to the funeral, said she had a work conference she couldn't get out of. I checked later. There was no conference. That was the day something inside me went cold and quiet about my daughter. Not angry, just careful. The way I used to feel walking into a crime scene where everything looked clean but smelled wrong. So when my phone rang on the morning of August 14th and I saw Caroline's name on the screen, I'll admit my first thought was, what does she want? "Hi, Daddy." Her voice was bright. Too bright, the way she used to sound as a teenager when she'd done something she shouldn't have. "How are you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything all right?" "Of course." "Listen, I have a small favor to ask. Trevor and I are flying out to Nassau tomorrow morning. Anniversary trip. 12 days at this resort he's been wanting to try." "That sounds nice." "The thing is, I've been smelling something funny in the basement laundry room for weeks. Like a mildew thing, or maybe a slow leak somewhere. I don't want to come back from vacation and find the whole house has mold. Could you call that plumber friend of yours, Hank? Have him come check it out while we're gone? I'll Venmo you whatever it costs." I held the phone away from my ear for a second and just looked at it. 2 years of barely a word, and now she needed me to manage her plumbing. "Why don't you call Hank yourself? You have his number." There was a pause that lasted half a beat too long. I tried. "He's booked out for weeks, but he'll come right away if you ask. You know how he is about you." That was true. Hank Delgado had been a witness on 3 of my cases back in the late 90s, and we'd stayed friendly over the years. He owed me favors he could never repay. "Anything specific you want him to look at?" "Just the basement, Daddy. The whole basement. There's a storage closet on the back wall, behind where we keep the Christmas stuff. I think the smell might be coming from there. Tell him to check that area especially. I told her I would, and we said goodbye. And I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after the call ended. 41 years of homicide work teaches you to listen to the things people don't say. Caroline hadn't asked how I was doing, hadn't mentioned coming by for coffee when they got back, hadn't said she missed me, just an itemized list of what she needed me to do. The next morning at 8:15 I called Hank. He picked up on the third ring, complaining about his back the way he always did, and I told him what I needed. He laughed and said for me he'd come the same day. I gave him the address on Sunset Ridge, and the spare key I still kept on my keyring, the one I'd never given back when I handed Caroline the house. I told him I'd meet him there at noon to let him in. I drove out to the house around 11:45. The lawn was overgrown, the mailbox was overstuffed with flyers. There was a child's pink scooter laying on its side in the driveway, and I stared at that scooter for a full minute before I could bring myself to walk past it. Caroline didn't have any kids. She'd told me, more than once, that she and Trevor were still trying, but it just wasn't happening for them. She'd cried about it at Christmas 3 years ago. I'd held her hand and told her sometimes it just takes time. A neighbor's kid, I told myself. Must have left it there. I picked up the scooter and leaned it against the porch railing. The house was dim inside, all the blinds drawn. Caroline had redecorated since I'd lived there. Everything was beige and chrome and untouchable. There were no photographs on the walls. Not one. In a house where Caroline used to keep a photo album in every room, where Diane had hung our wedding picture in the entryway and refused to take it down even when the frame got chipped, there was now nothing but blank beige walls and one of those abstract art prints that costs more than a used car. Hank pulled up in his white work van at exactly noon. He was a big man in his late 50s, hands like baseball mitts, gray ponytail down his back. We shook, and I walked him down the basement stairs. The smell hit us both about halfway down. Not mildew. Something else. Sour and warm and wrong. That ain't a leak, Hank said quietly. No, it isn't. Walter, that smells like a person. I nodded once. I knew that smell. I'd known it the moment we hit the third stair. It's a smell you don't forget once you've worked the kind of cases I've worked. You go on up and take a walk around the block, I told him. Give me 10 minutes. Walter, if there's a body down here, we need to call... It's not a body. A body doesn't make sounds. Listen, we both stood very still, and underneath the hum of the dehumidifier and the soft tick of the water heater we could hear it. A faint, rhythmic sound. The sound of someone breathing. Hank's face went pale. Walter, what the hell is going on in this house? I don't know yet, but I'm about to find out. Go up, wait for my call. If I'm not on the porch in 15 minutes, you call 911 and tell them everything. He hesitated, then nodded and headed back up the stairs. I heard the front door open and close. I walked the basement slowly, the way I used to walk a scene. The laundry room was on my left, the water heater on my right. Straight back, against the rear wall, was the storage area Caroline had mentioned, with cardboard boxes labeled Xmas and Easter and baby clothes, save, stacked nearly to the ceiling. I stopped at baby clothes, save. Caroline had no babies. She'd told me she had no babies. I started moving boxes, quiet, methodical. The smell got stronger the deeper I went, and then behind the third row of boxes I saw it. A wall, not the original cinder block wall of the foundation. A newer wall, drywall painted the same off-white as the rest of the basement, with a strip of wood molding along the top to make it look intentional, built to hide the fact that it was hiding something. I ran my hand along it. About 4 feet to the right of where I'd started, there was a seam. A vertical seam where the drywall met itself at an angle. I pushed gently. The whole panel swung inward on a hinge. Behind it was a door. A real door, with a real deadbolt, and the deadbolt was locked from the outside. The breathing was louder now, quicker. Whoever was inside had heard me. "Hello?" I said, and my own voice sounded strange to me, gentler than I'd planned. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Walter. I'm just here to help. Can you hear me?" There was a long silence. Then very softly, a small voice, a boy's voice. "Are you the cleaner?" "No, son, I'm a friend. The plumber. I came to check the basement. Are you alone in there?" "Yes." "How old are you, sweetheart?" A pause. 7. I closed my eyes for a second. Then I opened them and looked at that deadbolt. The key was sitting on top of a beam 2 feet to my right. Whoever locked him in had wanted to be able to find the key easily. Casual. Routine. That fact alone made my stomach turn over in a way that nothing in 41 years on the job had ever done. I unlocked the door and pushed it open slowly. The room beyond was about the size of a walk-in closet. There was a small mattress on the floor with a thin gray blanket, a plastic bucket in one corner that I didn't have to look closely at to understand, a single battery-operated lamp giving off a weak yellow glow, an empty water bottle, a plate with a few crusts of bread on it. The air was warm and stale, and the smell of a child who had not been allowed to bathe in a long time. And sitting on the mattress, with his back pressed into the corner and his knees pulled up to his chest, was a little boy. He was small, smaller than 7 should be. His brown hair was matted to his forehead. He wore a faded gray t-shirt that hung off one shoulder and a pair of shorts that were too big on him. His arms were thin in a way that arms shouldn't be. And his eyes. His eyes were what I remembered. Later, when I tried to sleep, big and brown and locked on me with the kind of fear an animal has when it's been hurt enough times to stop expecting anything else. I sat down on the basement floor outside the door, slowly, so I wouldn't tower over him. My knees popped. I'm not built for that anymore. "Hey there, partner," I said. "My name is Walter. What's yours?" He didn't answer for a long time. I just sat there. I've waited longer in interview rooms. Finally, in a whisper, "Mason. Mason. That's a strong name." "Mason? Do you know whose house this is?" He nodded slowly. "Auntie Caroline and Uncle Trevor." The word auntie dropped into my chest like a stone. "Mason, who's your mommy?" His eyes filled up, but he didn't make a sound. Kids who've been taught not to cry don't cry. They just leak. "Mommy went to heaven. A long time ago. Daddy was driving and the car went off the road. I was in the back. They said the angels caught me, but not Mommy and Daddy." "How long have you been living in this room, Mason?" He thought about it, his small face screwing up in concentration. Time isn't a real thing for a kid who lives in a closet with a lamp. It was hot when I came, and then it was cold for Christmas, and then it was hot again, and now it's hot again. 2 summers. He'd been down here for almost 2 years. I had to stand up and walk a few feet away because my hands were shaking and I didn't want him to see it. When I came back, I crouched down again and held out my hand, palm up. The way you offer your hand to a dog who isn't sure of you yet. "Mason, I want to tell you something true. I'm your grandpa. Your daddy was my nephew. His mama Mary was my sister. Your daddy used to come to my house when he was a little boy, and we'd build model airplanes together. Did you know that?" His eyes widened. "I have a grandpa?" "You do. You have me. And we're going to walk up out of this basement together right now, and you're never coming back down here again. Is that okay?" He didn't move. He looked at me like he was waiting for the trick. "Auntie Caroline said if I came out, the bad people would take me and put me in a cage where there's no light at all. She said this is the safest place. She said she was protecting me." I had to swallow twice before I could speak. "Mason, Auntie Caroline lied. The cage is right here, and we're walking out of it." I held out both hands. He looked at them for a long time. Then very slowly he uncurled himself from the corner and crawled forward and put his small hand into mine. I picked him up. He weighed almost nothing, like a bird. He pressed his face into my shoulder and didn't make a sound, but I could feel him shaking against my chest. I carried him up the basement stairs and out the front door, into the August sunlight. Hank was sitting on the porch step. When he saw what I was carrying, he stood up so fast he nearly fell. Sweet Jesus. "Call 911, I said. "Tell them we need an ambulance, Child Protective Services, and a uniformed officer. Tell them a kidnapping. Tell them I'll explain when they get here." Hank pulled out his phone. I sat down on the porch swing with Mason in my lap and held him. He kept his face in my shoulder and his small fists locked into the fabric of my shirt. I rocked the swing slowly with one foot and kept saying the same thing over and over, low, into his hair. "You're safe now. You're safe now. You're safe now." The first patrol car arrived in 11 minutes. The ambulance 2 minutes after that. The DSS caseworker, a woman named Yolanda Pierce, took 23 minutes. I knew Yolanda. We'd worked a custody-related homicide together back in 2014. When she stepped out of her county car and saw me on the porch holding the boy, she stopped walking for a moment and just looked. "Walter. What in God's name?" "His name is Mason. He's 7. He's my great-nephew. He's been kept in a sealed room in this basement for almost 2 years. His parents died in a car accident when he was about 5. My daughter Caroline and her husband Trevor are listed as his legal guardians. They're currently on vacation in the Bahamas. Yolanda closed her eyes for a second. Then she opened them and went into work mode. Let's get him to the hospital first. We'll do everything else from there. I rode in the ambulance with him. He wouldn't let go of my hand. They had to start an IV with my left hand still gripped in his right. At Mission Hospital, the doctors confirmed what I already knew. Severe malnourishment, vitamin D deficiency from no sunlight, stunted growth, more than a year behind where he should have been at his age. Dental decay, untreated ear infection. No physical signs of beating, but the psychological damage they'd come to assess later. He weighed 38 pounds. The average for a 7-year-old boy is around 50. I sat in the hospital waiting room with Yolanda. She had her tablet open and was scrolling. His parents were Daniel and Erica Brennan. Single vehicle accident on US 74, March of 2 years ago. Mason was the only survivor, pulled from the back seat by a passing motorist. He was hospitalized for 2 weeks for minor injuries and shock. After discharge, custody was awarded to Caroline and Trevor Holcomb, listed as the closest available relatives. His grandparents on my side are gone, I said. My sister Mary passed in 2019. Daniel was her only child. Erica was an only child too, and her parents are in a memory care facility in Florida. There wasn't anyone else? There was you, Yolanda said quietly. They never told me he existed. I had known Daniel was gone. I'd gone to his funeral. I'd cried at the graveside. I'd seen the small white casket beside the 2 larger ones and assumed that Mason had died in the crash. Caroline had told me so at the wake. She had stood there in her black dress and held my hand and told me that the boy hadn't made it. I remembered exactly what she said. He's with his mom and dad now, Daddy. It's better that way. I had not asked to see paperwork. Why would I? She was my daughter. Yolanda was watching me. Walter, are you all right? No, I said. But that's not relevant right now. She nodded and looked back down at her tablet. There's a survivor benefit being paid out. Social Security, around $1,400 a month, deposited into an account that lists Mason as the beneficiary and Trevor Holcomb as custodian, plus a settlement from the auto insurance, lump sum of $185,000, also paid into a custodial account, plus the proceeds of the sale of Daniel and Erica's home in Hendersonville, which closed about 18 months ago. 31,200美元. I did the math in my head. A boy in a closet with a bucket and a battery lamp. Almost $600,000. Trevor's real estate firm, I said. Look at the firm, the flips. I'd bet anything the seed money for at least 3 of those flips came out of Mason's accounts. Yolanda made a note. I'll subpoena the records. The doctor came out. Mason was stable, sleeping. They wanted to keep him at least 3 nights for refeeding protocol and observation. He'd asked, when he woke up briefly during the IV placement, whether the man with the white mustache could come stay with him. They'd told him yes. I went into his room. They had him in a bed that swallowed him whole, with stuffed animals piled around him from the pediatric ward. His face was clean. Someone had washed his hair. He looked, for the first time, like an actual child, instead of a creature. I sat down beside the bed and took his hand. His eyes opened. Grandpa Walter? I'm here, son. I'm right here. Are they going to put me back? No. Never. I want you to listen to me very carefully. As long as I am breathing on this earth, no one is putting you back in that room. I swear it on your daddy's grave. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded once, the smallest nod, and closed his eyes, and slept. I sat in that chair until 2 in the morning. Around 11, my phone buzzed. A text from Caroline. Daddy, did Hank go to the house? Everything okay? Followed by a smiley face. I did not reply. At 3 a.m., I drove home, made a pot of coffee, and pulled my old case file box out of the closet. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a yellow legal pad and started doing what I had done for 41 years. I started building a case. By 6 a.m., I had a timeline. By 8, I had a list of subpoenas Yolanda would need to file. By 9, I had an appointment scheduled with a family law attorney in downtown Asheville named Rebecca Whitman, recommended to me by a former DA I'd worked with. By 10, I had filed an emergency petition for kinship guardianship. By noon, I had personally driven to the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office and filed a statement detailing everything I knew about the imprisonment of a minor child by his legal guardians. Rebecca Whitman was 51, sharp as a steel trap, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She read through my materials in her office while I sat across from her and drank bad coffee. "Mr. Brennan, I've been doing family law for 26 years, and I have rarely seen a case this clean. You have eyewitness discovery, you have medical evidence of prolonged neglect, you have a financial trail, you have a closed and locked room with a key kept outside, and you have 2 guardians who are currently sitting on a beach, completely unaware that their lives are over. What's our path?" 3 tracks, simultaneously. First, immediate emergency guardianship for you. That's already in motion, and we'll have a hearing within 72 hours. Second, termination of their guardian rights, which I expect we'll get without much fight, given the evidence. Third, criminal referral. Felony child abuse, false imprisonment of a minor, and given what you suspect about the funds, possibly fraud, embezzlement, and exploitation of a minor for financial gain. The DA's office handles that, but I'll personally walk the file over. How long does that boy ever have to see them again? If we do this right, never. Not once. Not even at sentencing. My retainer? 10,000. Hourly's 375. But, Mr. Brennan, listen to me. There are funds in that boy's name that were stolen from him. Part of what we're going to do is recover them. You won't be paying for this case in the end. They will. I wrote her a check. That evening I drove back to the hospital. Mason was awake, sitting up, eating applesauce out of a plastic cup. When he saw me in the doorway, he smiled. The first smile, it was small and uncertain, and it broke me wide open. Grandpa Walter. The nurse let me have 2. 2 whole applesauces? Big spender. He giggled. He actually giggled. I had to turn around and look out the window for a second. I sat with him through dinner. They brought him chicken and rice and steamed carrots, and he ate slowly, carefully, like every bite might be his last. The nurses had warned me about that. Refeeding syndrome. They were monitoring him carefully. He could only have small portions for the first week or so. When he was done, he asked me very quietly, "Do you have a house, Grandpa Walter?" "I have a small one. Just a condo. 2 bedrooms. It's not very fancy." "Is there a window?" "Lots of windows. There's one in the 2nd bedroom that looks out at a bird feeder. I can see cardinals every morning. Could I see it sometime?" Mason. "That 2nd bedroom is going to be yours, starting the day you leave this hospital, for as long as you want." He didn't say anything to that. He just reached out his small hand, and I held it. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:47, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. I answered. "Daddy," Caroline's voice, and I could hear tears in it, and I could hear panic, and underneath both of those I could hear something I'd been trained to hear over 4 decades of interrogations. Calculation. "Hello, Caroline." "Daddy," the police called. They said something about Mason. "Daddy, what's happening? I don't understand. What did Hank do? Oh my God." "Caroline, stop talking." She stopped. "You told me, in the receiving line at your cousin's funeral, that Mason died in the crash. I held your hand and cried. Do you remember that?" There was a silence so long I thought the call had dropped. "Daddy, you don't understand. We were trying to protect him." Trevor said. "Trevor said what, Caroline? Tell me what Trevor said. I want to hear it." "Trevor said it would be too hard, raising him, with our marriage already so stressed. And the money was supposed to go into a trust, but Trevor said we needed it for the business, and Mason wouldn't even know. He was so little. We were going to tell him eventually." "Caroline, Daddy, please, please, we can fix this. We can come home and explain everything. We love Mason. You have to believe me. We love him." "Caroline, I am going to tell you something. I have been your father for 38 years. I held you the day you were born. I was at every recital, every graduation, every birthday. I am telling you this so that you understand I am not speaking out of anger. I am speaking out of clarity. That little boy upstairs in Mission Hospital, who weighs 38 pounds and has spent 2 years in a sealed room with a bucket because you and your husband wanted his money, is my grandson. He is my family. And you, as of this moment, are not. I do not have a daughter anymore. I have a granddaughter who happens to share my last name, and who is about to spend a great deal of time in a place where she will have plenty of opportunity to think about what she did. Do you understand me? She was sobbing. I could hear Trevor in the background asking what was happening. Daddy, please. Come home, Caroline. The detectives have a lot of questions for you. So does the district attorney. I would advise you to contact a lawyer before you land. You're going to need one. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the phone in my hand for a long time. 41 years of homicide work. I had told mothers their children were dead. I had arrested fathers for unspeakable things. I had sat across interrogation tables from men whose names you'd recognize from the news. And I had never, in all that time, said anything that hurt the way that conversation hurt. But I would say it again. I would say it 100 times. Because somewhere in a hospital bed across town, a 7-year-old boy was finishing his second applesauce and asking about a bird feeder, and he was going to live the rest of his life without ever stepping foot in that basement again. Whatever it cost me, whatever it cost her, that was the trade I was willing to make. I picked up the phone again and called Rebecca Whitman. They're flying back today, I told her. Caroline just called. She's going to try to spin this as a misunderstanding. She's going to cry on a witness stand. She's going to bring up that her mother died when she was 19 and try to say the trauma of losing me would destroy her. Let her try, Mr. Brennan. Get the financial records first. Before she lands, I want her attorney to walk into the first meeting already knowing it's over. Already submitted to the bank. Should have them by end of day. I hung up and I drove back to the hospital. And I sat with Mason while he watched a cartoon about a small blue dog, and I held his hand, and I thought about the long road ahead. There would be hearings. There would be a trial, eventually. There would be late-night phone calls and crying and the slow, painful work of teaching a child that a closed door doesn't have to mean a locked one. I was 67 years old. I had been planning to spend my retirement restoring a 1968 Chevy pickup I had in my garage. Instead, I was about to learn how to braid hair, pack lunches, attend parent-teacher conferences, and explain to a traumatized boy what a normal Tuesday afternoon was supposed to feel like. I looked down at him. He had fallen asleep against my arm, his small hand still wrapped around my finger. I had given my daughter a house once, hoping it would bring our family closer together. It hadn't. It had given her a place to hide a child. But I was about to give that child something I had failed to give my daughter somewhere along the way. I was going to give him a home. The kind with windows. The kind where the doors stayed open. The kind where, when somebody knocked, you let them in. And as for Caroline and Trevor, sitting at that very moment in some airport lounge in Nassau, sipping cocktails and watching their phones, scrambling to figure out how to spin what they had done, I had just one quiet thought. Sitting there in the soft beep of the hospital, monitors with my grandson asleep against my shoulder. They had hidden a child from a 4-1-year homicide detective, and they had asked that detective to send a plumber. The plane hadn't even taken off yet, and they had already lost.